Okay, I think I had a sound problem. It should be fixed now. Sorry. But anyway, you've tuned in. I'll start over again. You've tuned into One in Messiah here on Messianic Lamb Network. And we're on every Thursday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And going to the on demand tab on the Lamb website, which is lambnetwork.tv, you can watch this program or any of the other programs on the network at your convenience. So, a great resource. This is a very different kind of platform. There are so many different kinds of programs, all involved with Messianic ministry. And I'm honored to be here. And I always like to thank Mark Smith for, I'm sorry, I had a frog in my throat. I always thank Mark David Smith for all the work he does to keep the network together and coordinate all these shows. And really, it's a tough job. It's a very difficult job. But anyway, I want to just remind everyone that if you live in the Cleveland area, there is a live version of One in Messiah every Friday night. And we meet at 709 Brook Park Road, 709 Brook Park Road, which is Calvary Chapel of Cleveland Church. We start at about 6:30 to 6:40. It's a very modified Erev Shabbat service. We light the candles. We recite the Shema and the Via Hafta, the Amidah. We do some praise and worship, and then I do a teaching. So if you live in the area, come out, say hello. Friday nights at about 6:30, 709 Brook Park Road. So as you see behind me, today we're going to have, I think, a very special guest, a good friend, and a very interesting Messianic artist, Ted Pierce. If you're familiar with Ted Pierce, I'm sure that you love his music. If you've seen him in concert, you know he does a very spirit-filled, energetic music worship, does a lot of Messianic ministry all over the world. And I've been trying to get him on the program for a long time. And I think that he's here, except I don't see a picture. Ted, are you there? Oof. Maybe not. Ted, can you hear me? We might be having some technical difficulty. He has the link, of course, to come into the studio, and he could be, knowing this guy, he could be in any place in the world. He could be in Galilee, he could be in Alaska, he could be in Texas, he could be anywhere. And I hope he's not having a lot of technical difficulty logging in. I see on the thing that he's logged in, but I don't see him. So we'll wait a while for him to come in. I don't see Ted that often, but when I do, we have a lot of fun. When he's been in the Cleveland area, at Tikvat Israel or anywhere else in the area, we always have a good time. Last time we saw him was down in Mansfield, Ohio, and I think that was a couple of years ago. But and if he's in the general area, we go and see him, and as you should as well. And if you go to his website, which is tedpierce.com, and it's Pierce, Pearce, check out his event schedule. And if he's anywhere near where you live, you definitely should go. Although we've had Paul Wilbur on the program several times, and we, about Paul Wilbur music, and I'm honored to be on the board of his ministry and have known him for 20, I don't know, more than probably almost 30 years. Ted Pierce does a totally different kind of music, and he is from Texas, as I mentioned, and has, I think, been involved in Messianic ministry for probably 40 years or more. And I hope we can get him in soon, or else I'm going to be running out of things to talk about pretty soon. And I don't want to go over his biography because I want him to do it because he'll be much more entertaining. And also, on the other hand, it'll be good that you won't have to sit through another teaching with endless PowerPoints. I think here he comes.
Man, I was sitting there looking
Yay.
at you. I was sitting there looking at you for 10 minutes saying, hey, I'm here. Do you see me?
Oh, man, I couldn't hear you and couldn't see you.
Anyway, I just logged out and logged back in. It finally worked.
Yeah, great. Oh, it's so great to see you.
Good to see you too, Phil.
I just been singing your praises for the last 5 or 6 minutes.
Well, I'm surprised you weren't cussing me. I was so late again.
No. And I mentioned to everybody that, I consider you a good friend, but don't see you very often.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. I get around, though. I'll see you sooner or later.
Oh, yeah. And you see, I got a nice picture of you behind me.
Yeah. That guy.
Yeah. So since you're here now, we can kind of do a little interview because I just want to have people listen to what you have to say about yourself because you're probably by far the most interesting Messianic artist in the Messianic world.
Oh, that just tells me you don't know a bunch of them because.
Well, as you know, I'm good friends with Paul Wilbur and the Chernoffs and Marty Getz, but you're kind of in a different.
I'm a different breed, yeah.
Yeah, a different breed.
Well, first of all, out of all those people you just named, I'm the only one that's not Jewish.
That's right. Yeah, I'd like to talk. First of all, talk about where you're from. Where were you born? And
I was born a poor black child in Memphis, Tennessee.
No, you weren't.
That's a quote from the movie The Jerk by Steve Martin.
Yeah.
I'm from a place called Vidor, Texas. Some people have heard of Beaumont. It's down in the southeast part of Texas. It's where oil became cheap and everybody started using it. The whole oil age began right here in Beaumont, Texas, 1901 with Spindletop. So it's nothing but refineries everywhere you look for miles and miles and miles and miles of refineries. And my grandpa, he was a home builder, and he started in a city called Vidor, Texas. And Vidor, there was like a race riot in Beaumont, and all the white people started moving to Vidor, and Vidor became where all the Klansmen, the Ku Klux Klansmen, lived. Right. Well, my grandpa was like Cherokee and part Jewish and dark skin, So he didn't like the Klan very much, but he built half the houses in that city. And my grandpa, he wasn't a racist. He hated everybody equally. He did not like the Klansmen telling him who he could and could not hire. Now, there were no black people lived in Vidor, but he would hire them and they'd come out to work there. And then our construction crew would get into fights with the locals. So I grew up in this sort of atmosphere where fighting was kind of what you did. It's just every day seemed like it was a fight.
Yeah. Were you raised in a faith community growing up?
Oh, no. Both my parents were heathens. My mom she had played piano in the Baptist church growing up, but she was 16 when I was born. And she had 5 kids in the next 6 years. Wow. So she was divorced by age 22.
Wow.
So it wasn't so easy around here, but I thought that was normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Her side of the family and my dad's side of the family, both of them, were all musicians. So every time we got together for a family get together, we had a big jam. And I just thought everybody's family was like that,
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where the music comes from. My great grandpa, Martin Smith, he wrote the Beaumont Rag. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but it's like a standard in bluegrass music. And every time we'd get together, my great uncles would start playing them fiddles and them guitars, and they'd go 3 or 4 days. They'd start drinking and just go for days at a time, just jamming out there, playing that old Cajun music and that country. And Dad's side of the family was more into blues, But I had one cousin. He was on London Records. He had ZZ Top opening for him when they first started out. Anyway, so I grew up in this sort of musical atmosphere, where we don't really know what's going on outside of Beaumont, And
so you're pretty young when you started playing guitar.
Oh, I had a house gig playing 6 nights a week when I was 17. I did that for 3 years.
And it wasn't in a church.
No, it was at the Fox Lady. Fox Lady. It's a bar in Beaumont, Texas, and it's kind of a creepy place. But yeah, that's where I got to start. Both of our bartenders at the Fox Lady were Iranian, and I remember when the revolution broke out, one of them was pro-Shah, one of them was against it. Man, they were fighting all the time. But that was 1979. Oh my goodness, I've been around a long time. And so then I got tired of Beaumont and I moved up to Dallas. I'd done everything there was to do here. I moved up to Dallas in the 80s. I started a band called Side Effects, and we had a lot of success for a regional local band. We put out a couple little records, got some radio airplay. We were nominated Best Rock Band in town, all that kind of good stuff. When I met this guy one night at this bar, and he's like talking to the ceiling. And I went back to him after our set. I went, "Hey man, I want whatever it is you're drinking." And he goes, "I'm high on Jesus and I'm praying for you." And so he got me into this discussion. At first, I don't really care. If you want to be a Christian, go right ahead, whatever. I don't need that. Anyways, but he started saying stuff that kind of made me mad about, he's telling me that Saturday is the Sabbath and not Sunday. And I'm going, wait a second. Even an atheist knows Sabbath is on Sunday. What are you talking about? And so I thought, well, if he's telling me the truth, I'd never heard this stuff before. If he's telling me the truth, then I've got some ammunition next time I meet one of them Jesus freaks. I was going to find out if this is true or not. And that led me on a quest to read the Bible and find out what was true and what wasn't. Here I was, almost 30, and I thought, I can't let everybody else make up my mind for me. I need to figure this out once and for all. So I decided I was going to find out what the truth was. I sure God wasn't going to be there. I started reading the Bible, and I especially loved history. It was one of my favorite subjects in school. So I started looking at the prophets and trying to figure out what they were talking about. And I kept seeing Isaiah especially stuck out. Isaiah just blew my mind with how accurate he was about things in the future. Anyway, something supernatural started happening. I started thinking, well, maybe there is a God. And so for the next 4 months, I was obsessive. Now, my band was really tired of hearing about it. We were playing most nights, and every day I'd come in with something new I'd find out the Bible. And the band just didn't even want to be around me anymore. I was always talking about the Bible. They were actually kind of relieved when I got saved and quit the band. But anyway, that's how I came to faith.
Wow.
Trying to prove it wrong.
Wow. So how old were you when you came to know Yeshua?
Oh, I had been 30 for a month.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Wow. And then is that what led you into messianic music?
Well, like I said, I was on a quest for the truth, right?
Yeah.
So I did not want religion. I remember those religious people from Vider, and I didn't like them. So I started reading the Bible, and I noticed real quick, all these people are Jews. I'd always heard they were, I thought Peter was the Pope, and Mary was the Catholic, and Paul was a Pentecostal, and John was a Baptist. But no, they were all Jews. I mean, I think people who are in faith forget that there's a lot of people who don't know nothing. I mean, don't know nothing. I remember the first time I read the book of Genesis, I thought, I've heard some of these stories before. I really didn't know that. I guess I didn't really understand that, Prince of Egypt comes from the Bible. If you don't know, you don't know. So anyways, I remember just reading the Bible and going, wow, I've heard a lot of these stories before. I didn't know this is where they came from. So
wow.
Anyway, I was driving home from a gig one night after trying to prove the Bible was wrong, and I just looked up in the sky and said, God, if you're there, if you could even hear me, I'd follow you. But I feel like I'm talking to the air, and you're going to have to prove it. And I shook my finger and said, "You're going to have to prove it." And I just started shaking. My whole body started shaking. And in 15 years, the rock and roll lifestyle, that had never happened.
Wow.
So I took it as a sign, and my next words were, "Okay, God, maybe not so much at once." And life has not been the same since.
Wow. So then did you start learning how to play the music that was involved, or how did you get into the messianic music?
I guess I didn't get to that. So I noticed again all those people were Jewish. So I knew I needed to go to a church. Would get very good fellowship from the band, and so I was just calling around church. I didn't know the difference between Mormons and Mennonites, so I'm just randomly calling around, asking people. Number one, what do you think about the Sabbath? And then number two, do you have a lot of Jewish people there? And I never found a church that really was square with me on the Sabbath. I don't think, but every church seemed to have a Jew or two Jews. Every single church had a Jew or two Jews. But I'd say, well, where are they? What happened? Where did they go? And everybody had a different. I just remember all the different churches had different answers for that question. So that told me they don't really know. That's their guess, right? So anyway, the one church though told me about a place called Baruch Hashem in Dallas. And I said Gesundheit. Anyway, and he says no. They meet on over in North Dallas. They meet on Saturday. And I went bingo. That's what I was looking for. So the very first place I go into as a new believer was Baruch Hashem in Dallas, Texas.
Wow.
And my band had just been nominated Best Rock Band in Dallas. We were competing against Pantera. My friends in Pantera. And we lost. But anyway, so I had a pair of blue jeans with holes in both knees and a raggedy old t-shirt, and I put it on and I went to church. And I was waiting for any sort of criticism, like I remembered from Vider when I was a kid. The one time I went to a Baptist church, and anyway, so I walked in. I looked around the room and I thought, well, who looks the richest? I went to sit right next to her, right? And I was just waiting for her to go, something like that. But anyways, when Marty Waldman, the rabbi, he says, "Would you greet your neighbor?" This lady hugged me.
I've met him online. I've had some conversations with him online, but I've never talked to him in person.
So Marty Waldman and Jeff Seif was the cantor.
Wow.
So I've got Marty Waldman and Jeff Seif now teaching me the
Bible.
And so I not only got these, Jeff Seif, he's the dean of languages at Christ of the Nations, and still not the main teacher at Baruch Hashem. You know what I mean?
Well, Jeff and Barry are very good friends of ours.
Yeah,
we're on Paul Wilbur's board together, and I mean they're just Jeff is like unbelievable. All the stuff he's done.
Yeah,
different things in his life.
So this was back in this was 1990, and Marty was the teacher, and really both of them I think missed their calling. They should have been comedians.
Yeah,
But anyway, so I've got now these Jewish men. Both of them, by the way, are also children of Holocaust survivors.
Yeah.
Marty in Poland, Jeff in Germany. And so I not only am now they're teaching me the Bible with the original languages, Jeff being the scholarly dean of languages at CFNI, but also through the experience of the Holocaust,
Mm-hmm.
So it was those first 5 years at Baruch Hashem, probably the best years of my life. It was so rich, it was so deep, everything. And so I came in, and a friend of mine who told me about this place, he'd gotten saved too. He bought he sold his guitar to Nikki Sixx of Motley Crue. So his name is Steve. And so Steve's telling me about Baruch Hashem. So I go to Baruch Hashem, and Steve's there. Steve wants to be on the music team so bad, And I'm listening to this. I've never heard this kind of music before.
Were you on the music team? Were you on the music team when you first got there?
No, when I first got there, of course not. No, I had quit music though. After about 2 months there, I quit I quit playing in a rock band.
Okay. All right.
And now I'm sitting at home every night. Well, first of all, every time I'd read the Bible, I would get really inspired by what I was reading, you know. So I was writing a lot of songs. I was actually playing some of them at my bar gigs.
Yeah.
And I had this one song called Face of Love. I can't wait to be looking at the face of love. When I first got to Baruch Hashem, Marty plays harmonica, and we'd jam on this blues song. And everybody that's kind of our signature thing there. But anyway, so I started going to this congregation, and, you know, I didn't know, growing up in Vider, I didn't know any Jews. None my entire life. And now I'm eating couscous and playing songs in minor scales and, you know, learning Hebrew and singing these. Anyway, it shocked everybody around me. You know, for me, it was an enormous radical change. There was something about this music. I remember that first time I went there. You know, I'm thinking that girl can't even play bar chords on that guitar. You know, play open cowboy chords, and that girl next to her, she can't even tune that doggone viola. And that guy singing, he can't sing. So why am I crying? You know, I couldn't figure it out. You know, this music was not that great, but yet God was doing something. He was like washing over me with this music, something in this music. And of course, they were playing a lot of songs by Lamb and Israel's Hope back then, you know, which is just the word, you know, put to music, right? So, so that's what it was. Then I'd go reading the Bible and I'd say, oh, that's where that comes from. Wow, you know. And I guess that's what I always loved about Messianic music was it's really, it teaches you the Word of God, you know. So anyway, I don't know. I the first song I wrote specifically Messianic was Sons of Abraham. And I just remember feeling like, man, there needs to be a Jewish person in my seat here, you know. I've almost felt guilty that I'm taking up space a Jewish person needs to be in, you know. And there's a lot of that sort of identity crisis in the Messianic movement if you're a Gentile, right?
Yeah.
And it was a little, you know, for me it was a little bit weird. Again, I'm not German, you know what I mean? I'm not Jewish. What's my attraction to the Holocaust, you know, except for history? Anyway, I started going there, and anyway, I was writing all these songs, and I had no outlet for them anymore. And I handed a cassette to the worship leader, and she heard it, and she wanted me to join the music team immediately. And I had been a believer for about 2 months. And I remembered that verse about, you know, don't raise up anybody too suddenly. And so I told her, and it's still the policy at Baruch Hashem. I told her, so I feel like, you know, I'm a brand new believer. I feel like I need to sit under the teaching at least a year before I, you know, stand in front of the congregation. And that's now their policy. Marty thinks it was his idea. But I said, but listen, I'll help you out if you need help. You know, if you got something where you really need help, somebody's not going to be here today or whatever, I'll be glad to help you. And so they said, great, we're planning for Melody Green's wedding in 3 weeks. And I go, okay, who's that? Wife of Keith Green. I went, okay, who's that? So my first gig was at Keith Green's ex-wife when she got remarried.
Wow.
And I remember I didn't know anybody there, but there was the head of Sparrow Records, head of Word Records, Dallas Home, all these people that now I know who they are. You know what I mean? I had this guy come out and says, hey, you need some help? And I said, yeah, grab that amplifier right there and bring it in. That was Matthew Ward. I was making him carry all my stuff. So anyway, that was my first gig. And then after that, I just started filling in with them. And after a year, I did come on the music team. And I was there for about 5 years, and I just absolutely loved it. And then, you know, what happens everywhere, there's a big old split.
Yeah.
People you love hating on each other, and you just got to kind of get away from it all. So anyway.
Yeah.
All right, that caught you up. This is how you get an old redneck that sings Jewish music.
Yeah, you don't fit the stereotype of the Messianic synagogue.
Well, for me, it really it was much about the history and just the education of the music. But again, I was on a journey for the truth. I'm still on a journey for the truth. That's why I do that virtual reality tour of Israel.
Yes.
I want to go see the truth, and I want to show you the truth. So
Yeah.
that's kind of why I was a little bit. I wasn't late, but I was right up to the edge because I'm working on a VR show today on Megiddo, and doing a little part of the clip on the Canaanites right now.
Yeah.
I'm learning a lot.
Tell us about the virtual tour ministry
Okay, so
and how people can access it.
all right. Well, it's the website is cultural exchange .org without the E in exchange, that first E, just cultural exchange. Anyway, so a virtual reality camera is a camera that shoots in every direction. And back in the early days, about 10, 12 years ago, it was actually multiple cameras shooting in every direction. And we'd just take the data from this camera and the data from that camera and this camera and that camera and that camera and stitch them together into a world completely around you, like you would do with a pan photograph, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So that's what a virtual reality camera does. And my son was going to film school in San Francisco when it started happening in 2013. And so he was asked to go. His first job was to go shoot Paul McCartney, August 2013 in San Francisco.
Wow.
And he got on with this big company called Jaunt, and they had more money than they knew what to do with. So they were sending him everywhere to go film in virtual reality. I think he filmed every Super Bowl. He filmed every NBA Finals game.
Wow.
He filmed every bowling championship. He filmed lots of concerts, Elton John, Coldplay. I bet you 50 people didn't watch anything he filmed because you got to have the headset to see it, right? So this company, they're like a leader in the production of it, right? It looked like a golden pumpkin, but it was 50 cameras, 50 cameras in a ball like this. And anyway, so he was on the ground floor when all that started in San Francisco. So I hired him right out of college. His first job was going to be go help me start this virtual reality tour of Israel. So we started on this actually in 2014. We filmed our first shooting in February of 2015. And then I have a little bit of a background in broadcasting also. So he helped me do the first show. And then I had him as a counselor, and I just continued going back. I went back 4 years in a row and filmed the same tour. So we're working with IGT. They're the biggest in Israel, the biggest tourism company there. Mm-hmm. So through them, I have the favor of the Israeli tourism and also the favor of shooting these places. And so not only that, we use their best archaeologists. You know, if you ever go on a tour, you're going to be standing in a crowd with a bunch of people you know or don't know. And you're going to have an archaeologist. You're standing at the location, and an archaeologist telling you what you're looking at. Well, in virtual reality, I can recreate that. You're standing in a crowd with a bunch of people. There's the archaeologist talking, and there's what he's talking about. You know, and you can look around behind you, above you, behind, you know, below you, and see just like you're standing there because the camera shot in every direction at once.
Wow.
So when now we have 80 headsets that are synced up. We can sync as many as we can buy, right? But we have 80, and we put them on people's heads, and I stand there with an iPad, and I push a button, and we're all in the exact same place, starting with the same orientation, looking at the same thing, but every viewer can look independently, whichever way they want to, like they were standing there.
Wow.
So you know, your eyes tell your brain you're standing there, and your brain looks at your feet because you know you're not, you know. But it's extremely realistic. And now with the help of some AI upscaling, it's gotten even better. So
I bet the technology's gotten a lot better.
Yeah. So I took, so our closest competition in this space is the Museum of the Bible. And they wanted us to come to Oklahoma City. The corporate wanted to see what we're doing because their number one exhibit at the museum is their virtual reality room. But as high as the ticket is to get into the museum, it's an extra $10 to go to that. Right? So they've got 10 minutes of virtual reality, you know, with a drone just sort of flying over Israel. You know, it's nice photography, but you don't really stop. You know what I mean? You're sort of coasting above it. And that's their biggest exhibit. And so they wanted to see what we have because we have 7 hours of content.
Wow.
They got 10 minutes. So, we kind of blew their mind. I showed some guys at Gateway what we were doing in 2015. They also now have about 5 minutes of VR that they spent a lot of money getting. We filmed on Daniel Carmel's worship boats every year for 5 years in a row. Now he's doing it.
I know Daniel. He's awesome.
Yeah, well, now him and Moshe, they got a partnership together, and they do it up right. They really spent a lot of money getting some virtual reality film made, and then they bought the brand new Quest 3 viewers, which are like $250 each. I can't afford those things. I just get the Oculus Go. But anyways, they got them, and they're coming to America now 2 months. But they're charging like $75 a ticket to go watch their thing.
Wow.
And that's about what it goes for. The Van Gogh exhibit was going for $50 a ticket, and they sold 7 million tickets last I heard.
Are they showing it in churches, or where are they showing it?
No, the Van Gogh immersive. No, they don't show it in churches.
Where do they show it?
Oh, they show it. They go into big cities and they buy a big warehouse, and they have to convert it because basically they're projecting everything on the walls to make it 360.
Oh, I see.
So it's not quite as immersive as you'd think, So we were going to the same film festivals back in 2014 and 15 with them, and a bunch of other things too. And they're like one of the few that are still around. Everybody blew all their money back in the early days, and I don't walk around anymore, So I didn't have a lot of money to blow, so I was kind of hanging on. I'm one guy, but over this last 12 years, I've had plenty of time to edit all the footage I've got in a lot of different kinds of programs. So I've got things that are just biblical history, archaeological sites. I have a lot of cultural stuff. I've got like McKedam. I've got a bunch of music. I got Alios Rabinoff. I've got me playing at King of Kings in Jerusalem. I've got music. Got a bunch of music. I've got like your own Cherniak and Shai back before they were in McKedam. I've got a documentary on a terrorist that stabbed 11 people in Tel Aviv one day while I was there. He killed somebody in the parking lot, in the parking spot that I pulled out of 2 hours earlier.
Wow.
And I went back to film it the next day, and there's still like blood stains in the sidewalk, and Israelis just walk around eating ice cream. It was crazy. But yeah, he killed a Texan named Tyler Force, and we actually had a law in the books, Tyler Force Act, that prevented us from paying anybody in the Palestinian territories as long as they were paying terrorists. And Biden suspended it real quick. But anyway, so I've always been interested in just finding out what the truth is, And I was a musician before I started doing that. So it's all kind of mixed up in there together,
Wow. I can picture you playing at King of Kings. That's such a great facility.
Well, you don't have to picture it. I got a virtual reality. You can stand there.
Oh, man. We've been at King of Kings many times, and Wayne Hillsden's a good friend of mine, and Chad Holland. And
I got Ann and Jamie playing with me in that.
And we watch, we watch their live stream sometimes on that they do on Sunday evening, but we get it, of course, in the morning. And my wife and I always sit in the same place, and I always go, "There's our seats."
Yeah, I kind of consider Wayne to be like the Apostle of Jerusalem.
Oh man, he is just awesome.
Yeah,
and his son, and his son Jamie with McKedam.
Yeah. Before they were McKedam is when I recorded the Cultural Exchange album with them, right?
Oh.
So it's a weird story. Because of March of Remembrance in Poland, I met a superstar, a national treasure. I mean, the biggest star in Poland's modern history is a guy named Mietek Szczesniak. And I was playing at his boyhood church when he showed up to see me. And I didn't know who he was, but I knew that everybody in the room was surrounding him he had a clump of 100 people surrounded, So I thought, well, that dude's famous, right? Anyways, he breaks through the crowd. He comes and says, "Mr. Pierce, may I please talk to you?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." Anyway, it started a long, long friendship. And because he is such a big star in Poland, he had a bunch of Hollywood producers were in Poland, had signed him to a record contract. A Reformed Jewish lady named Wendy Waldman. She's kind of a legend in the music business. She's the only woman that ever broke into Nashville as a producer. She produced Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, Ozark Mountain Daredevils. She wrote You and Me Going Fishing in the Dark. She wrote Save the Best for Last by Vanessa Williams. She's a legend, all right? And she signed Mediatek to a contract to do this album, and they started working on it 5 years ago, and they stopped. And he played that album for me. It was just so great. I said, listen, you can't not finish this. And I began bugging both him and Wendy for the next 2 years until they finished that album. And it's just an amazing album. But because of that, that's how I met Wendy Waldman. Well, Wendy Waldman's building a studio in her LA house with Rob Hoffman. He's Christina Aguilera and Michael Jackson's producer. So now, because of Mediatek, I'm involved with these famous Hollywood producers, right? And so Mediatek was going to come out to Hollywood to do some recording. And I was going to sneak out. I was just hoping they'd let me sit in the room and watch, you know what I mean? And I get out there like the day in advance when he calls and says, Wendy, I'm not going to be able to make it. And she says, what am I supposed to do? I've already got the studio booked. All the guys are paid. What am I supposed to do? He says, Dad's a pretty good singer. So I got to walk right into his spot. And that's how I got the Hollywood Sessions album.
Wow.
But anyways, it's the music and the whole Jewish thing, I mean, of course, in the entertainment industry, there's a lot of Jewish people. And I didn't even know how to talk to Jewish people before I met any, right? And now I know. I mean, I just act like I'm one of the tribe now. So
yeah, that's right.
so anyways, that's how I met all those folks. And anyways,
didn't you get an award from the Israeli government?
Yeah, our March of Remembrance.
Yeah.
They wanted to give me. They called me in 2011 and said, We're giving you an award on, I think, September something. And I went, oh, that's awesome. I said, does a plane ticket come with it? And they kind of laughed and said, oh, no, you will find a way to get here. Well, I didn't. So they called my name at the Knesset, and I wasn't there. And evidently that embarrassed them. So in 2015, I came back, and they were like, hey, wait, how long are you in the country for? And they called a ceremony together real quick, and they gave it. So anyway. So I got that. So actually, I got 2 awards from them for the same thing.
Wow, that's awesome.
It's the March of Remembrance.
Tell us about the March of Remembrance.
Okay, well, so my music somehow made its way to a church in Tübingen, Germany, where there are all the children of Nazis. And they were repenting for the sins of their fathers when God spoke to them and said, you're just like your fathers. And so they started going into like 3 hours. Everybody in the church was required to do 3 hours of prayer time every week in the prayer tower. And they were playing nothing but Messianic music in there to become familiar with Jewish believers. And evidently they liked my music the most. So, they had me come to Germany. And I went there and I told them, I stood in front of them and I just said, listen, your fathers were some bad people. You can't really get around that, Not your fault, but I got a lot of Jewish friends that need to know you're not just like them. And I said, so you've got to take it outside these walls. And the pastor had already planned for him and some of the elders to take a prayer walk. And I just told everybody in the church, no, we're going to all sign up. We're going to all walk with Pastor. We're going to walk all the way to Auschwitz. That was 2007. That's 180 miles. We split it up. Wow. Nobody walked that far. We split it up into different sections, but every mile was walked, right? And so anyways, that's, I began telling their story, and that's what made it credible, So that's how I started, with the March of Life and March of Remembrances. I just started telling the story because, their message really was we got to break the veil of silence. Silence is caused by fear or pain or shame. And in their parents, the silence between the generations was caused by the fear and the shame of their kids finding out who they were. But in Jewish families, they had the exact same silence, but it was caused by the pain and the shame of the Holocaust. So there was this silence between the generations that you can't break it until you start talking. So that was basically, you think about it, every stronghold in your life, the power of that stronghold is held by fear or pain or shame. And until you break the silence of that fear or pain or shame, you're gonna be held in that stronghold. So this was kind of our message, and the Germans just gave me the best narrative to show it. You know what I mean? And so we began to start telling that story. But over the years, it started becoming more and more about the. I mean, these kids, they are the children of some really, really, really bad Nazis. So
Wow.
over the years, it became more about that and less about the fear, the pain, the shame aspect of it. And that's what I signed on for. So I actually resigned. We went to Jerusalem in 2018. It was prophesied when we started in 2006 that it would end in Jerusalem. Well, we had planned to march through Jerusalem 2 years before they moved the embassy, and I told them when we planned it, oh, that's the day they're going to move that embassy, I bet you. And it was. And so once we did march through Jerusalem, I just didn't really feel like there's anything I need to do anymore. I'm not German. I'm not Jewish. It's really up to now these Germans to carry it on. You know what I mean? And they're doing amazing work. They have carried it on, and now it's become more of a European thing than an American thing. But only last week, they folded the name March of Remembrance into March of Life. So there's no more March of Remembrance. So I wrote them and asked them if I could take the name back. And they were a little concerned about me doing it this fast. So anyways, we did. I go to a congregation in Beaumont. I mean, we're lucky if we can get a minion. I mean, we're a really small congregation, Rabbi David Stone. And we're just kind of, we're like really surprised that nobody seems to be calling for prayer on October 7th. It's been 3 years now. Nobody has done it yet. So in Beaumont, we thought, well, we're just going to do it and see if anybody shows up. We don't care if anybody shows up as long as the Lord's there. And so we thought, as long as we're doing it, we're just going to make it shareable where everybody everywhere can say, I'm praying on October 7th. And so that's what the October 7th Day of Remembrance is about. I started that website. And really, it's just, you don't even have to put your name. Just tell us that you're praying on October 7th. And I would love to have, I'd love to say, well, millions of people here are praying on October 7th for you, Israel. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But
what's the website?
It's Day of Remembrance .grok .me. Day of Remembrance .grok.me. And you just sign in. If you want to put your name, you can. If you don't, you don't have to. But we would love to be able to say, we have this many people are praying on October 7th. And I know we will be if nobody else does. And we just feel like somebody needs to call for it at least. You know what I mean? So as it turns out, they are praying in Israel. So anyway, that's what that's about. It's something that Rabbi David Stone is it's kind of, he's the head of the congregation here. It's kind of up to him, but I'm his hype man, So we're calling it Day of Remembrance, and really it's just you're committing to pray on October 7th. So, everybody watching, you can do that. Can you pray with us for 1 hour? How about 10 minutes? Those, like I say, those saints in Germany, they were praying 3 hours a week. Everybody in the church was required 3 hours a week in the prayer tower. And I looked around the room, and there was about 800 or 900 people there. And I said, well, how many members you got? They said 230. I said, well, I don't know. I see a lot more people than that. He said, we only count the ones that pray.
Wow.
So that means they got 230 people that pray 3 hours a week.
Wow.
Faithfully. So, how would that change our churches if we had that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So anyways, I'm hoping that people don't just let the day go by,
Yeah. Wow. Wow. So you've done a lot, from playing at the Foxy Lady to doing all this. Yeah. And, at the beginning of the program, I always advertise, I have this ministry here called One in Messiah in Cleveland, and we meet on Friday night, and we do kind of an Erev Shabbat, very modified Erev Shabbat. And I'd love to get you, we'll talk about it privately, but I'd love to get you to come some Friday night and do some music, because we use recorded music, and that's just not the same. And we'll talk about that, and we'll talk more about that conference that we're going to do next summer. That's going to be the first weekend of August, but I'm not allowed to talk about it yet because we're still in the planning stage. But there'll be a lot more information. But I'd love to have you come, because Friday night, I know we get usually about 25 people, And if we announced we had Ted Pierce coming, we'd
You
probably
get
get 20
26.
people.
You get 12 is what you get. So tell them Paul Wilbur's coming, but I showed up at the last minute because
Yeah, Paul had to
if you want a
cancel.
crowd, that's how you get a crowd.
Yeah, yeah. When Paul was doing a lot of
You
traveling.
hadn't even mentioned my beard.
Well, yeah, it's quite impressive. I'm used to seeing you like the picture behind me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is scruffy. I guess about, I don't know, 3 years ago I decided I wasn't gonna buy any more razor blades.
Well, yeah. Mine was from 2015. I always had the mustache, but
There you go.
since I'm bald, I thought if I grew a beard, I'd look like an old Jewish guy. So I do look like an old Jewish guy. But
If I'm
we
a
would,
baby face, I didn't even have whiskers till I was 30.
yeah,
I was like 55 before I could start
yeah.
growing a beard. You know what I mean? So I thought, well, I
We were,
never had one. Let me see what it looks
yeah,
like.
we were at a conference in Pittsburgh that day. I started growing the beard, and Paul Wilbur was there, and Marty Getz was there, and then my wife and I were going on a 1 week vacation, and I said, hey, I think I'm going to shave this week. Why should I bother shaving? I just want to relax. And then I haven't shaved since then. So
So we
Paul
both got
Wilbur
beards
tells
because
me I
we're
look.
lazy.
Paul Wilbur says I look like I should be in the Sanhedrin, but I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of feel like an old rabbi myself now. I think I
Yeah,
fit right in
but
there in Jerusalem,
yeah, it makes you look more scholarly. And
especially with the
but
hat.
yeah, that's right. But we gotta get you back to Cleveland. We got to get you back to Cleveland.
All right. I got
And
back to Ohio.
I remember that last time. I remember that last time you were here. We had so much fun at the congregation. But I don't think you've been here since then, have you? Have you been in the Cleveland area?
Well, I mean, I've been going to Canton every year for
Yeah, I know you've been in
6
Canton.
7 years.
I've missed it because I've been. Weren't you down in Salem or someplace in?
Yeah. It was a guy gave me an apartment to live in for about 4 months there, so I lived in.
Wow. I wish I'd have known. We'd have been down there to visit you.
Yeah, I wish I'd have known too. Anyway, I tried reaching out to all the places. It was, I tell you, my ego got bruised really, really bad. I called down to Columbus, Ohio, to see if if I could play there, right? And the girl that answered the phone and goes, and your name is, and you are calling in regards to. It's like she had no idea. She'd never heard of me, and I know they play some of my songs there.
Yeah.
But I would go like, just it sort of hurt. You never heard of me? Okay, well, never mind.
Yeah.
So anyway, I didn't seem to get a whole lot around there when I was there. So anyway, Mansfield, those guys are always friends of mine. So I spent a lot of time over there.
Yeah.
In Pittsburgh, I got a lot of friends in Pittsburgh. So between there, I stay busy as I need to be. I really like.
Next time you go to Pittsburgh or any place in Ohio, send me a text and I'll be there.
Okay.
like that day we came down to Mansfield. I said, "Man, Ted Pierce is in Mansfield. We got to go down there."
You didn't come down to Mansfield? Okay, I'll let you know.
Yeah, remember I came down. It was about 2 years ago already. Now, my wife Joan and I came down and we kind of hung out at the beginning and Asar Shalom in Mansfield.
Yes.
So what about your music? Tell us about how can people find out about your music or where to buy it or where to download it or.
Well, tedpierce.com. You can spell my name right. Pearce. I've never stopped making music. I'm always working on something new. So I put out 2 albums this year.
Wow.
I live at a recording studio. I don't know if you know
Really?
that. Yeah, I live at a recording studio.
I'm not surprised.
So I left Beaumont 43 years ago, and my mom was dying. So I came down here to be with her for the last 5 months. And while I was here, I was looking for a place to do some. I backed up a little bit. I was looking to buy Janis Joplin's house.
Really?
And I was going to turn it into a recording studio.
Wow.
But it didn't have a really, really, really big room. So I was trying to find any studio in the area that had a big room where I could, maybe I go record the band there, and then we go back to the house to mix it and do vocals and that kind of stuff, right? So I was looking for a place with a big room, and I went over to this guy's place, and it was an amazing room. You could tell this was he spent a lot of money on building this room. But then I walked in the control room, and all the gear is like laying on the floor, and he's like using a laptop to mix something on a big screen. I'm going, something's wrong with the picture. So he told me his story, and basically he had been wiped out twice by hurricanes and floods and had never made a penny in 8 years and had almost $2 million sunk into this place.
Wow.
And I could see, I mean, the depression was heavy on him. And so I just gave him some advice, and he looked at me, and he didn't even know me. He pulls his keys out of his pocket and says, "I think God sent you." And he hands me the keys to the studio. And he says, "You could." I had this RV that I was living in because my mom was down. Didn't want to stay at the hotels, right? So I was going to sell it and move back to Asheville. He said, "No, just go park that right up there by the pool and run my studio for me." So now I've been here 3 years. And so I go out touring with my son. We go out for 2 months, and I come back for a month. And while I'm here, I go work in the studio or work on some VR, and then we take off and go show the VR some more. But Monty, he was not a believer when I first started here.
Wow.
But as I would start recording stuff, I could see God was moving, and he'd start like crying. He didn't want me to see that he was crying, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And I could see his heart was really, really tender, you know. And then I found out his brother was a pastor. And anyway, his mom had always wanted to go to Israel. So I offered to go show her Israel. And I went over and showed her Israel. And she died less than 2 weeks after that.
Wow.
And Monty was so grateful because it made a big impact on her. She wouldn't stop talking about how she'd always wanted to go to Israel. And it made a big impact on her. And so Monty, he was just so grateful I did that. I don't know. It was like the next time I left town, it was about 2 weeks after his mom had died. I didn't get 10 minutes out of this place, and he calls me on the phone and says, "Jesus Christ is Lord." I'm going, "Yeah, buddy." So,
wow.
you know, I'm not the kind of person that pushes. You know, I think most people in America know, you've heard it 1,000 times. You know, until it moves you, it's not going to do any good to tell you again. So my way of evangelism is I do things to make you ask the questions. I'm not going to start talking to you. I'm going to make you ask the questions. And that's the only way that works with Jewish people. You know, Paul even says, the Greeks, the Gentiles require wisdom. You got to explain how it works. But the Jews, they want a sign.
Right, on signs, yeah.
Right. So you got to give them a sign before they even ask the question. That's how you, if you go fishing, that's how you, you know, get a Jewish person's interest. So, so I'm always doing things to make them ask questions, you know, and I've got the most unorthodox way of giving the gospel that you've ever heard. I can give you the gospel and you didn't know you got it. So, but,
that's awesome. Well, we got about 1 minute left. So,
okay.
When's the last time you were in Israel?
Oh, I hadn't got on a plane since 2020. So
yeah, okay.
I keep making plans and keep chickening out.
Yeah, I know. Same with us. Every time we make a plan, something else happens. Another war starts.
Everybody I know, every time they get on a plane, they got a terrible story. You know.
Yeah.
Aviation industry to settle down. You know.
Yeah, I've been exchanging emails with Wayne Hillsden and a lot of other people there. Some people at congregations that I've had the honor of preaching at, but it's not the same as being there. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's true. Well, listen. Part of the VR thing is we are going to go to live virtual reality by 2030, probably a lot faster. And what that means is you'll put on your headset. You're actually standing in Israel real time, looking around. You'll have a tour guide you can talk to, and he'll talk back. So virtual reality is about to get to that kind of place where you can be in Israel. I mean, literally, it's amazing what's going to happen when it finally comes all together.
Yeah, but then how can I go to my favorite restaurant in the Jewish Quarter? It's not the same.
Yeah, true, but you can always order it.
Well, Ted, this has been awesome. You're so fun, and I hope we can get together in person pretty soon.
Oh, we will. We will. I'll be seeing you in the spring.
Yeah, we're gonna stay in touch. So. Wow. So thanks for being part of the show. And I'm going over my times now, so I got to sign out.
All right.
But
Well, thanks for having me.
all right, then. Stay in touch.
Okay.
If you missed today's show, or want to watch it again, or want to tell someone where they can watch this episode, go to lambnetwork.tv, where you will find this show and all the other live Lamb show archives in the on-demand section of the website. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to tell someone about the Messianic Lamb Network. We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date, progressive teachings, discussions, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the lambnetwork.tv website. I'm Dr. Phil Gigliotti, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.